In Kensington Market, a social services agency is announcing legal action against the Ford government's legislation to close some supervised consumption sites. Let's listen.
Toxicity epidemic that has already claimed far too many lives. These unjustified restrictions on establishing these sites cannot go unchallenged. Today, our speakers will outline their case against the Community Care and Recovery Act and explain why this challenge is crucial to the health and well-being of people across this province. I am honored to introduce the speakers who will present in the following order. First, Bill Sinclair, President and CEO of the Neighborhood Group Community Services, which runs the Kensington Market Overdose Prevention Site and is a co-applicant in the case. Catherine Resendez, an individual co-applicant in this case who has used the services at the Kensington Market Overdose Prevention Site and is a graduate of the Neighborhood Group's peer program. John Sewell, former Toronto Mayor, and Barbara Hall, former Toronto Mayor, and Rahul Agarwal and Carla DiCarlo, two of the lawyers in this case. We'll start with Mr. Sinclair. Thank you.
Hello, a big room. Welcome. My name is Bill Sinclair, and I'm the CEO of the Neighborhood Group Community Services. We're here today to announce that we are challenging the Community Care and Recovery Act. You'll hear more about that from our speakers today and the grounds on which we're challenging the law. I want to start, though, with the story of how this started. The Neighborhood Group Community Services, or TNG for short, is an organization helping residents of the City of Toronto for over 110 years. Over the decades, we have constantly listening and adapting our organization to meet some of the most crucial needs in the community today. 6 years ago, in 2018, we were alarmed by the increasing overdoses in our community, and we wanted to urgently learn how to prevent death and how to be part of the solution. We did learn how to make a difference and how to save lives, and since then, we've continued to make a difference and provide life-saving health care and health services, housing, employment, and more in Kensington Market. Our Kensington Market Overdose Prevention Site has had no deaths due to overdose in our 5 years. And in fact, none of the sites in Toronto have ever had a death within a supervised consumption site. The research and the experts prove that supervised consumption sites make a positive difference, both for the individuals we meet and for their whole neighborhoods. With this court case, we're demanding our right to continue to provide this care and save lives. We're all standing today in one of TNG's childcare centers. And this site has been going back as childcare for over 50 years. Ironically, it is this very childcare site and other nearby childcares and other nearby schools that is the reason that is forcing us to stop and the closure of our life-saving services. This is a safe, high-quality childcare center. And it is plain that our children and parents are not at risk from our supervised consumption site. Our supervised consumption site is also a safe, high-quality service. And by our services, we reduce risk and harm. We know that the 200-meter rule proposed by the province is wrong and will lead to harm and to death. It's this simple. I want to thank you all for coming today to tell this important story. I want to thank our wonderful partners and legal team today to bring support and knowledge to our fight. And I want to thank the KMOP's staff, volunteers, and participants for believing in this vital work and in saving lives every day. You can help us make a difference, and that's why we're going to court. Thank you. We will have a Q&A session once everyone's had a chance to speak, but I'd like to introduce Catherine Resendez, our co-applicant, to say a few words.
Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Catherine Resendez. I'm one of the applicants in the Charter Challenge. The closure of the sites will undoubtedly result in the significant loss of life. Those of us that use the sites do not have a death wish, as some may think. We want to live. Please be aware of the devastation that will occur when those of us who rely on the sites are unable to access them. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce you to Toronto's former Mayor, John Swoll.
Not just me, but Barbara too, Barbara Hall. I might say that David Miller, another former, he wanted to be here and he couldn't be here today. So you've got support from us old folks. As members of a society, we have an obligation to do everything we can to support people in society who are in need and in trouble. That's why we're supporting supervised consumption sites. Those are people in trouble. We have an obligation to support them. It absolutely astounds me that the provincial government says, throw them under the bus. We don't care about those people, because that's going to be the impact of shutting down these sites. And I think it's really good and hopeful that the courts are things that we can rely on when we can't rely on our provincial government. Sites save lives, and it's our obligation to do so. Thank you.
A number of years ago, John and I and many others supported the Board of Health to support safe consumption sites. We knew there was a need then, and we've seen incredible results. We heard about the fewer loss of life, but we know there, one, aren't enough, and two, there aren't enough treatment spots for those who want them. So we need to help people stay alive and then help them find the supports they need to get healthier.
Carlos?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name's Carlo DiCarlo. I'm one of the members of the legal team that'll be bringing the challenge. I'm here today with Rahul Agarwal. Olivier Ng from my office is also here, and then our other partner is Avnish Nanda. He's not able to attend today. This case, quite simply, is about the Ontario government favoring politics over people's lives. It's favoring partnership over data. There's no science-based evidence to support the idea that closing supervised consumption sites will make anyone safer. Not the people who critically rely on these services to survive. Not the people who live in the communities where these services are located. And Ontario knows this. It commissioned reports before passing the Act that concluded that supervised consumption services reduce overdose deaths, improve access to healthcare services for a marginalized community, improve referrals for addiction treatment, and minimize social disorder. This is the science. It's uncontroverted and overwhelming in support of supervised consumption services. Now, despite this data, Ontario has chosen to pass an act that does two things. First, it bans supervised consumption sites that are within 200 meters of schools and childcare centers. Second, it prohibits municipalities and local boards, such as Toronto Public Health, from getting permission to operate a supervised consumption site. Once the Act becomes effective, these measures will result in the closure of 10 supervised consumption clinics across the province. But the effect will be more widespread than what those numbers suggest. In Toronto, half of the supervised consumption clinics will shut down. Given the disadvantages that they already face, it's impractical to expect that the vast majority of the individuals that are currently receiving services at one of the sites that's about to shut down will be able to walk to a clinic that's kilometers away that might remain open. And for the ones that do remain open, they will undoubtedly become overrun, making it even harder for people to access those services. Now, you heard from Bill that we are in the very childcare center that will cause TNG's supervised consumption service to have to close down. The supervised consumption site is actually just on the other side of the laneway, just behind this gym. It is the childcare center that TNG owns and operates to provide another service that its community needs, just as TNG decided to provide supervised consumption services as well. It was a service that it saw the community needed. And this just highlights the arbitrariness of the Act and the link to schools and childcare more generally. TNG certainly does not see that supervised consumption services impair its ability to provide its childcare services, nor has TNG received a complaint from any of the parents at the childcare center about the supervised consumption services. There's no rational basis to make that connection. It plays on heinous and pernicious stereotypes about a community that's marginalized and unable to push back. When a government acts capriciously, when it passes laws that have no rational basis and will harm lives, it likely violates the Constitution. And here, we say the Community Care and Recovery Act violates the Constitution. And I'm now going to pass the mic over to Rahul, who will explain why.
All right, we are hearing from TNG. That's the Neighborhood Group Community Services, a social services agency in Kensington Market, announcing legal action against the Ford government's legislation to close some supervised consumption sites. It says it is taking the province to court because the 200-meter rule is wrong and will lead to harm and devastating outcomes for people who use substances. Also important to note, at today's press conference, former Toronto mayors Barbara Hall and John Sewell both supporting supervised consumption sites in the province, saying we have an obligation to help those who need our help.